I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will note that Commissioner Canizaro and I are here. Council President Hudson is not. I just want to note for the record that there is discussion about Council President Pro Tem Hogan representing Council President Hudson on the SURA board, which is currently under consideration. So we'll wait for an update from the council on that. But in the meantime, we do have a quorum. And so we'll move on to the proof of notice, which is on the third sheet of our packet here, which was posted timely and appropriately. So we'll move on to new business. We have 3 items of new business, and I'll
Mayor, sorry to interrupt you. Just the minutes from the
last
meeting.
Oh, geez, went right by him. Sorry, Meg. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so minutes are beginning on the 4th page of the packet. That's from our April 29th meeting, and I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
I second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Meg, back to you.
Okay, and I'm actually going to kick it back to Michelle
All right.
Skapansky, who is here, and she'll be able to give some more information on actually all 3 of the resolutions. Well, so I will note that the resolutions will be forthcoming after the vote today. But so the 3 actionable items, 3466, 3467, and 3468.
Okay.
Are for your consideration today, and I'm going to pass it to Michelle. She can give a little background on each of those items.
Great.
Thanks, Meg. Michelle Spansky, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood Development. So resolution number 3466, authorizing SURA to accept funding in the amount of $500,000 from the City of Syracuse for the purposes of redeveloping 1725 South Salina Street in collaboration with Home Headquarters. This would be a project that would be in accordance with the current urban renewal plan, urban development plan that is in place through SURA. This, just for kind of some additional background and context here, this item was one that originally was authorized by the Common Council as a special object item in the fiscal year 24-25 city budget. Similar to business that was discussed before the SURA board at a recent meeting, I believe 2 months ago, related to the ability to facilitate the movement of some other funds that were authorized for the Housing Strategies Corporation. This was a separate special item, special objects line that was authorized at that point in time, meant for Home Headquarters. Because of the way in which these funds will be used for redevelopment on a private residence, Corporation Council has again recommended that because of the fact that the proposed use of the funds is consistent with the urban development plan through SURA, that these funds kind of be routed through SURA as an entity, with the idea that SURA would then enter into agreement with Home Headquarters for the completion of the work.
So I think you just said this, but I just want to reiterate. So this, Home Headquarters has had a standing special object at least for a couple of years now.
No.
Or was last year the first year?
24-25 was the first year that has ever happened.
Okay.
And
Added by the Common Council
correct,
as one of their
yes.
amendments of the current fiscal year budget.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, and so has this gone before the council yet, or we're doing this first?
So the SURA board first needs to pass a resolution basically memorializing that it is willing to enter into such agreement. We have submitted the legislative request to the council to appear on the June 9th agenda and have noted within our legislative request that a board resolution would be forthcoming. So obviously in the event that the SURA board would not opt to proceed with approving this resolution, obviously we would need to adjust that. But
yeah. Okay. And also pending in front of the council is the updated plan, urban renewal plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that has not yet been voted on.
Correct.
All right, but this is in compliance with the current plan.
Correct. So this does not need to be necessarily dependent on the new urban renewal plan. The more particularly urgent timeline item related to this item is the fact that it is a special object in the 24-25 budget, and so we're dealing with the end of the fiscal year deadline.
All right, so I think this is a good opportunity, and Mike, I didn't give you a heads up on this, but just to acknowledge both for this, this resolution as well as the other two, that Commissioner Canizaro and I have been discussing SURA's role in administering these funds and the added capacity constraints related to that. And so I just kind of want to acknowledge that for the record and give Commissioner Canizaro an opportunity to expand upon it if you'd like. But I think that just especially, given the fact that this project and in large part the subsequent projects are related to neighborhood and business development work, I think that we as a body for SURA as well as NBD as a department needs to look at ways in which we can help build SURA's capacity to manage these types of projects. And when I say SURA's capacity, it's really Mike in his office, but really Mike. So I just want to note that that is a challenge and something that we have to work through. But we're committed to, and that may also involve dedicating some SURA resources to do it, whether that's an outside accounting support or additional staff capacity. Mike, anything you want to add to that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mike, Michelle, that sound like a reasonable
Yep, absolutely.
objective? Okay, so separate from this meeting, we'll convene, we'll get some folks together and talk through what that entails. But the reality is that this type of work, SURA has certainly had one-off projects, but this is between this and the third resolution is adding a significant administrative burden on SURA that we want to make sure we properly manage. Okay, so with that, we have the resolution in front of us. Mike, any questions about the project or the resolution? No. Michelle, Mike, anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
Is this project already underway or?
No, this project is not underway, so they would be awaiting kind of confirmation that the funds are able to flow for this particular purpose.
Okay. How did Home Headquarters end up in possession of this? Is this an old?
It's a SMNC property, so
property.
they would be looking to redevelop it and maintain it as affordable housing units.
Currently occupied or no?
No, it is not currently occupied to my
How many
knowledge.
units do you know?
6.
6. Okay. Okay. All right. If there aren't any other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved?
I will second it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right. Next up, related resolution.
Resolution 3467 would be a companion piece to the item that we just spoke about, entering into a funding agreement with Home Headquarters for the redevelopment of 1725 South Salina Street.
That's a agreement between SURA and
Home Headquarters. Yeah.
Will there also be an agreement between SURA and the city, or is that accomplished through the related legislative items,
Yeah,
resolutions?
so that's how I would envision it, yeah, so long as both bodies approve. I'm not sure that an agreement would be necessary.
Okay. I'm going to come back to that on the next one because I think that we may need to talk more about that, but that makes sense for this one. Makes sense to you? Yep. Entertain a motion?
So moved?
Second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right. Third resolution, 3468.
All right, so Resolution 3468 is authorizing SURA to accept an amount, as it is listed here, it states about $7.9 million from the city of Syracuse to act as the city's fiscal agent for infill housing, lead hazard abatement, Children's Rising Center, community broadband programming, community violence intervention programming. I think based on some late in the morning correspondence, there would be a request that the SURA board consider adjusting that number to 8.5 million, not to exceed, and include some additional reference for the urban forest master plan and a small portion of commercial corridor funds. But the purpose is really kind of all of the items largely. So these are ARPA projects that for various numbers of reasons are in circumstances where they have not been able to be fully dispersed yet. So largely they're in situations where a contract has been executed and there's a need to do a one-time, no-cost extension kind of beyond the end of the current fiscal year, so the dollars need to go to, need to be transferred somehow off the current city books to be able to continue spend down. There's certain circumstances that projects might be in, particularly this affects a lot of the development-related projects where there's been site-specific commitments that have been identified, so the council has authorized redevelopment or new construction at a particular address. The work at that address is tied to other funding commitments from other entities that may not yet have fully closed. So as an example, we have a project with home headquarters at 310-12 South Ave, where there's some related DRI funds that the project, even though we authorized the funding quite some time ago, there was implications just with timing for the state's ability to disperse money, so that's resulted in some of these kind of moving a little bit slower. There's certain circumstances where we may have projects where the city has issued a commitment that has been tied to council approval, but that we're still waiting on kind of other larger funding commitments. So I think the Salina First project is an example of that. All situations where we anticipate that the project is going to be completed by the original Treasury deadline of December 31st, 2026, but yet thus far we have not been able to fully kind of complete them. And then I think the last kind of circumstance that we have with some of these, and this really kind of applies to the Children's Rising Center item, where we have a authorized ARPA project that the council has approved that is not necessarily tied to an existing contract itself, but for which that financial commitment authorized by the council ended up becoming some type of financial match or leverage as part of another kind of grant agreement. So right now, Children's Rising Center, as it stands within the CNI agreement, that is a component of that project. So until we would go through the process to fully remove that, at this point, we have to anticipate that the city is, based on what we've kind of submitted as a party to that application, we need to kind of maintain some source of funding to be able to disperse those. So I think in this particular circumstance, what is coming before the SURA board, I think it's important to note that there could be potentially other ways that we might be able to possibly work around this that ultimately might not involve SURA, but the path forward that we are pursuing at this point in time, understanding the timeline for the end of the fiscal year, we are asking the SURA board to consider authorizing this item in anticipation of the fact that we are coming up very close on the end of the fiscal year and that we need to, we're pursuing the request to council, and so the SURA board obviously needs to kind of sign off on it first. But certainly in the event that there are other opportunities where we could end up at the same place where these funds can still be used for their anticipated purposes, if such mechanism could be identified through conversations with the council, I think the understanding with the SURA board would be that you all would be amenable to that, and that ultimately you might not have to act on this particular item, but we just want to make sure that we have the capacity to do so if needed. That makes sense.
I have some questions. Mike, you want to? Okay, I'll jump into it. So, okay, so again, the 8.5 million is not to exceed, and that essentially allows for some wiggle room, some flexibility depending on whether or not projects pan out. Is it safe to assume that any funding that is, well, I think we need to make sure that any funding that's transferred to SURA that isn't used for its stated purpose, there's a mechanism to put that, to send that money back to the city? Has that been, is that a possibility? Has that been contemplated?
I think that would be a question that we would need someone from Corporation Counsel to weigh in on. I think it would be my general understanding that if the city is acting as SURA's fiscal agent and they're still tied to the authorized kind of project buckets, that an alternate use that is in keeping with those particular projects could likely be something that would be a workable arrangement, but we could confirm with Corp Counsel definitively.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that I suspect the council would want to have some say on. And so, again, not to exceed 8.5, but ultimately it will be, we'll make that determination prior to the transfer of funds based on the status of the projects, right, at the end of the fiscal year?
Yep.
Okay. So again, that gets back to my point about, maybe some sort of more formal agreement between the city and SURA, just to account for the what-if scenario. So, if projects change, if projects don't end up expending all the funds, I think, the concern that I've heard from the council is just, not delegating any of their authority to SURA in terms of determining where and how the money is spent. So I think, I expect it'll be very prescriptive. And then again, we need to account for the possibility of something changing and what happens in that case. You mentioned some things missing, including the urban forest master plan. I'm also not seeing in here, is it the distressed properties?
Commercial corridor
Commercial
fund
corridors?
specifically was, I think there was about 200,000 additional that's where.
So that would
the
also
extra
be in
funds.
here?
Yes. Yeah, so commercial corridor fund is the addition along with urban forest master plan. My understanding is that distressed property is all set.
Okay, commercial corridor funding, all right. Also related to the agreement with the city, I think we might want to consider, timeframe, deadlines. Part of the benefit of going through SURA is to not be restricted by the city's, annual budget year framework. But again, I don't know that that the city will want to, write a blank check. So as we're looking at different kind of, for lack of a better term, clawback mechanisms, we might want to think about a time frame for that. So let's consider that. I think that, again, whether it's in the resolution, Meg, and maybe this can all be accomplished within the resolution, but if not, in an agreement, I think that some reference to what we had discussed in terms of, management capacity should be referenced. That SURA will take the necessary steps to provide for necessary staffing capacity to administer these funds. In partnership with the finance department. And so I say that, what I would suggest is, speaking for myself, I'd be comfortable authorizing this resolution with the condition that, we get an opportunity to review whatever's ultimately drafted and consent to it, if that makes sense. So I don't want to
yes.
hold up the process, given the fact that we're careening towards the end of the fiscal year, but I also don't want to put either of us in a position where we're signing off on something where there's going to be quite a bit of detail that's going to matter.
Oh, absolutely.
Make sense?
Yes.
That sound okay to you, Mike? Okay.
Yeah, and there are certain provisions that we put in every resolution, if there's any type of agreement, that it would be subject to approval by SURA's council.
Okay.
Something like this, because it is it is really conditioned upon Common Council also approving.
Yeah.
That would be something that would be in there.
Right.
Again, another term of typical SURA resolutions, when it has to do with financials, there would be, as Commissioner Canizero is also SURA's treasurer, so there would be a provision related to that. So there are certain standard provisions that you would see in there, and then, yes, it would be based off of this discussion. I would draft something based off of that.
Okay. Just while I have everybody, for infill, all of these home headquarters projects, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. There's some additional funds that were tied to housing visions projects. There's a couple other one-off projects that are happening with other developers. I mentioned the Salina First project.
Yes.
A couple other smaller developers that we have contributed some dollars to.
Okay. And lead hazard abatement, is that just being treated as any other city funds or federal funds that have gone to the city for the purposes of lead abatement, or is it being handled differently?
Largely, yes. I think it does give us a little bit. We have leveraged the ARPA lead hazard funds consistently to when we were under the terms of our previous HUD lead grant. to cover overages. So HUD has some pretty tight provisions around maximum dollar amounts for work that were significantly lower than what we were seeing work actual costs being approved as. So we leveraged the ARPA funds to provide us a mechanism to really efficiently make sure that we could still get those projects done. We do have a little bit of wiggle room with some of the ARPA-led dollars as it pertains to particular income eligibility and then the presence of a child in the home.
Okay.
So typically HUD will not allow you to have more than 10% of your total units be either vacant or not have a child under the age of 6 in the property. We certainly are not anywhere close to coming up on that 10%, but we've also been a little bit with ARPA funds while we will try to prioritize it, understanding that 25% of the city's population is moving at least once a year. We're trying to take an approach of, particularly if it's a rental property, if it's not occupied at the moment, we want to make sure that we're proactively getting it taken care of.
That makes sense.
So the other thing that this lets us do is the people that we had pre-qualified and then the HUD program ended. This allows us to continue forward with the work on their properties as well.
Great. Okay.
I do want to note, just generally speaking, there may be some instances where there's contracts that have to be assigned from the city to SURA.
Right.
So that's just a point to make there.
Okay.
That would also be contemplated in this request and in the resolution,
Okay.
if the board approves.
If I may, I'm trying to make sure that the board doesn't have to come back together depending on the resolution. Would it be best for us to come up with a draft date now for when the money would be returned, or is that something that can be worked out later without having to come back for a vote?
I think it would be best to do it now, if you have that in.
As a matter of just practical terms, the original Treasury spend down deadline was December 31st, 2026. So barring any other different deadline, I think 6 years is typically a standard federal spend down, use it or lose it timeframe. So
Everyone generally comfortable with that? Good. Good to have deadlines.
That was December 31st.
2026.
26,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. All right. So that'll be in there. Some of the things that we discussed will be as well. And so I'll actually introduce a motion to approve with the conditions that we discussed. I'm thinking that maybe, again, just in the interest of efficiency, that my motion is to approve the resolution with the conditions previously stated, as well as authorizing SURA to enter into a contract with the city if deemed necessary. That sound okay?
Yes.
Just to cover our bases?
Yes.
Okay, so that is my motion. I'll entertain a second.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Any other items to come before the board?
That's all I have for today, Mayor.
Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.